Hello students, it's Professor Capko again. We're going to follow up and learn some more about how to deal with problems with x's. If you saw my first video on that subject, you would learn how to deal with an x and how, if you have an x, it's best if it just stays by itself and move everybody else out. So we're going to deal with some more problems with x's, and let's see how we would do those. Here's an example of a problem you might see with an x. X minus 5 is equal to 15. Again, I like to use very simple numbers to start with. Numbers that you might be able to do right in your head, but simply to demonstrate the process that I want you to use. And that way, since you can do the numbers in your head, you will believe in the process. Once you have the process down, it doesn't matter how complex or large or small the numbers are. We use the same process each time. So in this case, we've got x minus 5 is equal to 15. To solve this, we want to solve for x. Now again, there's only one variable here, so it's pretty obvious that the x is what we want to solve for, but I always ask students, start out by circling what you're trying to solve for. That way you don't forget. And in a small problem like this, not a problem, but if you start having 2 or 3 variables, it's very easy to get lost, especially if you're stressed. I don't know about you, but if math stresses you out, you want to find as many ways as possible to avoid stress. So let's go ahead and circle what we're solving for. In this case, x. That's your first step. The next step is we want to get x all by itself. We want to get all by itself. On this side, we've got x, and we're taking away 5 from it. So what we want to do to get the 5 out of there is to do the opposite. We always want to do the opposite of whatever the operation is. In this case, we're subtracting 5. We're subtracting 5 from x. So the opposite of subtraction is, you're right, addition. So we're going to add 5. We're going to add to this side 5 like this, so that it's going to cancel out. Now, if you recall from the last video when I showed you the scales, or I drew scales, and if we do something to one side and not to the other, then the scales are going to be out of balance. We always want to have our equation in balance. So it's just like if you have multiple children. If you were to give a gift to one child and not to the others, then you will probably have your life out of balance. The children that you didn't give anything to might get upset. So for example, if you have 2 children and you give one of them a pony and the other one you don't, you're going to have some difficulties, to say the least. So if you give one child a pony and then you give the other child a pony, everything remains in balance. So that's why I want to do the same thing here. Whatever I do to the left side of the equation, I want to do to the right side. And since that's the same thing as with dealing with pony, I like to call this the pony rule. So this will be from here on out known as the pony rule. So I added 5 to the left side, and so to the right side I've got to be fair, keep it in balance. I'm going to add 5 to this side. I draw a line. And I suggest you do all these steps exactly like this, not try and take shortcuts. Shortcuts oftentimes are where you get into trouble. So I've got minus 5, and I'm adding 5. That is a 0. I don't need to write that down. It's a placeholder. I didn't do anything to the x, so I'm bringing that down as an x. This is a 0. We don't need the placeholder. I'm bringing the equal sign down. And I got 15 plus 5. 15 plus 5 is 20. 15 plus 5 is 20. So now it appears that we've got a solution. It looks like x is equal to 20. And you can circle that. And it may be a good idea to circle that so you know that that's your solution. But before you finalize your homework or your test or anything like that, it's always best to check your work. So I'm going to rewrite the problem. X minus 5 is equal to 15. And to do the check, I'm going to take the x out and leave an empty box there. Got an empty box, and I'm going to label it x so I remember what was in there. Minus 5 is equal to 15. I didn't do anything to it other than take the x out and leave an empty box. What do you think I should put into the empty box? That's right, 20. That's the number that appears to be the answer. So I'm going to put 20 in my empty box because that's what I think the x is equal to. So I've got 20 minus 5. 20 minus 5 is 15. and 15 is equal to 15. It's now in balance. Perfect. So we know this is a correct answer. Now, this is where I'm glad that you circled this answer, because what will happen is I've seen students get nervous and during a test or something, and then they write down the answer is 15. The answer is not 15. That was our check number. The answer to this problem is 20. So make sure you keep that in mind at all steps. So we're pretty good with that. That is the way you're going to solve this type of problem. If you like this, go ahead and give us a thumbs up. And also you can subscribe to this channel. If there's a particular type problem you need solved, go ahead and put it down in the comments. So I look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you next time. This is Professor Capko.